Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the All-Star Boxing Podcast. Great episode, by the way. And just last weekend, our young All-Star Guns competed at the state titles, and we actually had 14 win gold and one come away with the silver. So I'm going to do a quick shout out to all our gold winners. Sorry about the last names. That's not him. I'm reading off Coach Paul's Instagram page. So we have Charles, Cooper, Pearson, Bailey, Mac, Mackenzie, Jasper, Tom, Chase, PJ, Taj, Jai, Craig, and Talia all coming away with gold. And we have Aaron who won silver. So massive credit to the All-Star team. That's impressive. And we get to see them just training hard all day, every day. You know, they are their best competition, and to see this, and I'm pretty sure Australia sees this, and they're just the next evolved athletes coming through. So just wanted to do a quick shout out for all the winners, gold and silvers. Impressive, and man, congrats. It's just the beginning of something new, and enjoy this episode. Thank you. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the All-Star Boxing Podcast. I'll introduce the panel. So we've got our coach Benny, the one and only Benny Harrington, and our next guest is a special one. He had a total of 158 amateur fights, and within that amateur experience, he gained a lucrative stack of boxing achievements at the highest level, such as winning gold numerous times at the Australian national boxing titles. In 2005, he represented Australia at the World Boxing Championships in China. In 2006, he competed at the Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. In 2007, he competed at the Amateur World Boxing Championships in America. And in 2008, he then went on to compete at the Olympic Games in Beijing. Throughout those years of high-level events, he had training camps in multiple countries such as Cuba and Mexico. And in 2010, he then turned pro and had a total of 17 pro fights as a professional. I bring to you this
Benny Harrington, and we also have Todd Kidd.
Bring to you this incredible individual by the name of Todd Kidd. So thanks for jumping on, man. And look, I'm going to clap hands because that's an impressive resume.
Thank you, Miles. Yeah, and thank you, Benny, and the guys for having me on. So it's
thank you. And look, I think for point of conversation, we can just walk through your boxing timeline.
Okay.
And so we'll go through all of this. We'll pick up the highlights and all of that. So, what age? Because you came from Caboolture Boxing Gym. Did you first start there?
Yeah, I did.
Coach Todd Turned. So how old were you? Yep. How did you find boxing?
I was a fat little kid playing rugby league down there at Caboolture. Snakes, yeah, that's it, the snake. And I needed to lose a bit of weight, needless to say. So, and it was something that really appealed to me as a kid. I sort of, with footy, they were good days with good mates, but I always felt a little bit different to the status quo. So it appealed to me. I went down there and I got stopped in my first fight. So I don't know why I kept going, but there was always a burning desire in me. I had my first fight. I went down there after footy, 1996.
How old were you?
I would have been 11.
Yep.
And I remember going to the gym. I was probably about 54 kilos when I first went to the gym. Little fat.
So it's heavier. That's
prop. Yeah, and I got down to about 48 within about 4 weeks, and then had the first fight.
Mm.
And
you fought after 4 weeks?
I did. And
that's what happened back then, eh?
I was just a tough little kid. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing.
We all got thrown in back then.
And yeah, mate. Look, it was a hard way to learn, that first one. It was a bit of an eye opener, but there was a burning desire in me to have a crack at this. And then I lost my next two on the road, so I was going really well. And then I'll never forget the chat with Dad coming home, and you know, I was only 11 years of age. He said, "Look, there's no shame in quitting if you don't want to keep going." And I just went, "No, that's not me." No, I don't know what it was about boxing, but it was definitely unique, and it brought something out of me that was different, and I felt at peace. I know it's probably hard to explain to many people, but that's where I felt everything would just disappear, and the noise of the world would just dissipate, and that was, I felt like a winner at that point anyway. So then I started to turn things around. And those are good days with Donnie, because we were on the road. We went everywhere. It was every week, and you would have known, Benny. It was we would drive to Dorrigo. We drove to down to Cessnock, down to Newcastle, and we went everywhere. And it was good. There were good days, good opportunities, and those guys put a lot into giving us those opportunities. So blessed really to get that.
Yeah, nice. Hard days. Quarter days.
Oh, yeah, mate. But it is what it is. And when I reflect back on that, Donnie's I know he probably tickles people the wrong way sometimes, but deep down, you gotta remove the superficial layer of someone, and he was like a father. Like another father, really, and like he would do anything for you if you're on his team. As all my experience with all boxing coaches.
He really was.
They're
Donnie,
loyal.
Yeah. I can remember boxing for a different gym in the same era I came through with Todd, and Donnie would always, if you lost a fight or whatever, he'd be from a different club from me, but he'd come up and pat you on the back and say, "You're going good, mate." Like he is a dead set legend of the sport. As I was going to touch on, also, so is your dad. You talk about your dad, you drove home and said to your dad, but many people know Terry Kidd.
Yep.
And he would have got into boxing, I'm guessing, through you being in boxing?
Yeah, well, I guess I haven't really shared this with too many people, but he's the only reason I kept, boxing, because with my situation, my mum passed when I was a month old.
Yeah, right.
And so for me, it was a big sort of, always wanting that attention. You always want your parents' attention, right? And so when I played footy, Dad would come sometimes, but not all the time. And I noticed a lot of the other kids, with their kid, and that's all I ever wanted was that connection with the father. And when I went to boxing, he was there all the time. And it really has moulded me to where I am today, and just how important it is to have the right people in your life. They don't have to be a parent. They just have to be a good role model, a good person in society, someone who's there for you. Someone you look up to, and he was always that person. Never faltered, that bloke.
Yeah, mate, honestly.
To this day, I've never seen him drink. I've never seen him smoke. And,
he's
just
still an official in the amateur game?
I don't believe so, mate. I think he's just sort of a bit of, he's doing his own thing now.
Yep.
He's just
How long was he
now.
Involved in the sport?
Mate, I don't know. He did get involved when I was boxing, because I was screaming for judges and
then he only finished up three or 4 years ago.
Yeah, correct.
So
so it was a big part of his life as well.
That 15, 20 years?
Yeah,
he was the top of the top. Terry. Anybody that knows amateur boxing in Australia knows Terry Kidd. Terry Kidd was the head official.
Look, he actually helped me. So I'm still a New Zealand citizen. I couldn't compete at the Australian titles, but I visited Dad, Terry Kidd, and he helped me get over to New Zealand. He helped me get in touch with all the New Zealand clubs, and we did all the paperwork. It was actually me and Terry Kidd that actually did all the work, and then he got me over to New Zealand.
Nobody that you'll ever meet who's met Terry would say a bad word about him. Absolute legend. And obviously he did a good job with you.
Oh, mate, 100%. And that's one thing I've sort of, it's stuck with me forever. It's sort of, when you, as a kid, you see all your other mates playing up and having fun and this and that, but I never really loaned for that. You always get, pulled away, and then it's like, well, I really love that time with my father as a kid, and that sort of connected us in a way, which was really something special.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Different conversations from the fights that you won and then fights that you lost? Going home, different conversations?
No, look, Dad was more of a, he was never really that invested. He was the shadow who would just support me in a way. And I remember when I made the decision as a child, and this is one of those great values that he imbued in me really young, when I decided that I'd move on from Caboolture Boxing Club. It was a really hard decision to make. I just won my first Australian title with them, and I was only a kid. But I'd set that in stone that I wanted to go and train with the guys at Foley's gym because I was just in awe. He had a fantastic gym with some great fighters. And
What age were you when you left?
I was 13, 14 maybe.
And that was the decision that you made.
It was a hard decision to make, Benny, because as a kid, you know, and Dad said, look, you've got to go and see him face to face. You can't just move on.
Yeah.
You've got to go and speak to someone. And when we got there, I just broke apart.
Yeah.
I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I just cried and cried and cried, and I could imagine how it looked from their side.
Yeah.
But it was one of the great values that I'll always take with me because I've learnt now that you've got to go and face people.
Definitely.
You've got to go and speak to people and get their respect. And, you know, like, and the same thing happened with Mike, and it was hard to move on.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to do what you want to do with your life and not hold on. And I think that respect is still there. I'd like to hope it is.
Of course it would be, yeah.
Because you did do that. You did do the right thing.
And if the coaches are in it for the right reasons,
correct,
it'll never be a problem.
No,
because
all,
you know,
it always hurts.
Yeah.
It always hurts, right? Even when you think back and reflect on it, it's always going to hurt because you shared something. You really connected, and that's what matters.
That's a different kind of connection because even though you're not a parent, there's still that kind of spiritual connection between coach and fighter.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though you may have different fighters, there's still that unique. And I think I'll always have that with Donnie Tyndall because I started Caboolture boxing.
Yep.
And I felt that love that I had. He is another father figure.
Yep.
He is another father figure, and he helped me throughout my amateur boxing days.
Especially when you start with them.
Yeah.
When you start with that person, it's it's very deep. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I don't know anything because I first went to Caboolture boxing. I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
That's all I knew, and that was my second family.
Yep.
So you can understand just those early moments. When did you realise that you had something like this was actually working for you? This boxing game.
Still trying to figure it out. So I remember being 15, and that's when I was at Shamrock at the time, and I was watching the Sydney Olympics. It was the Sydney Olympics were on, and Justin Kane was in there. He was a teammate at the time, and I remember watching him at the Olympics. He beat the Thai fighter in his first fight, and I was just in awe, just going, fuck, that's what I want to do. At 15, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I'm gonna put my head down and have a crack at this, and so that's sort of where it sort of started. I know you're a bit young.
Who was in that
to be
team then,
setting
Toddy?
That was probably
At Shamrock, I mean.
Oh, back then you had after those Olympics, then Brad Hall came in.
Yeah.
So you had Matty
Powell
now, Matty Hayes, Justin, and John Vaughan.
Yeah.
And then he had a few others like Ray. He's up in Townsville now running boxing, right?
Yeah, right.
But they had a good team.
His son, Wade.
Wade was there. Yeah, there was a lot of good fighters, and just being, you know, like always you'll be the average of what you put yourself around. So put yourself around strong clubs. I mean, you've got a very strong club here, and you must see the kids grow off each other.
Yeah, definitely.
More than anything, it's the competition against each other and
100%.
how they pick each other up that matters.
Yeah, nice. Benny, what do you remember like watching Todd Kidd? Because you would have come through the amateur game.
Well, we're pretty much the same age. When are you born? 85.
Yes,
I'm 84.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Todd was just always a level above him and Fletch. They were just levels above, and it got to a point there where they were living at the AIS, and then they'd come up to qualify through our state and just wipe the floor with everybody, and then go back to the AIS and travel the world. And that you might not have heard that from a different perspective. But that's what it was from us.
From my perspective, I was never the best fighter in the gym, any gym I went to.
Yeah.
And I never got so you had to work for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. That you know, like there was Shane Tyndall when I was in Caboolture. I was only just starting off.
Did you
and
start
that was
him a lot?
hard. No, not really.
Okay.
No, I was a little bit young for Shane, yeah. But and you know, he was, and then you go on to another gym, and so you know you're always around someone better than you, which picks you up in a way. So I just found that was something that I sort of always put myself around people better than myself. It's good to hear that thing.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, like you had and Queensland were really, really strong back then. Back when you guys were down there, and they used to bring the team back up to states, and it was just like, honestly, they'd go through the whole state, stop everybody, and then go back down to the AIS, and we'd forget about them. We're doing our best all year, And then, oh, fuck, that's right, these guys are coming up. And it's just, honestly, it was awesome. It was actually an awesome time to watch boxing because those guys were just another level. All the year they're around the world fighting, and we're fighting each other at the Morayfield Tavern.
Yeah,
you know, like it's not even.
It's hard fights there, brother.
It's
hard fights there without the gloves.
So, Todd, you were part of Team Australia, so you've been surrounded by some of the best within the country. When you experienced some of these training camps like Cuba and Mexico, was there a big difference? Like, what did you pick out of those training camps?
Not really, I don't think so. It's what you make of it, right? Like, there were some great coaches along the way that you sort of pick little things up, but I don't know, I just think it's the culture, really, that you build. And you get assistance along the way, or you watch and you know, like I've learnt so much in my later years just from being around people like Steve Della and Greg Eady. When I went to Mexico, I was talking about this to someone the other day. I went to Mexico and I was an outside sort of boxer. I was not really an inside fighter. And I did some inside work with Greg Eady and he just ripped holes through me, punched the shit out of me. And I was a couple of divisions heavier than him. I was like, fucking hell, this bloke's fucking awesome. And but then he started slowing things down and showing me. And he'd obviously grown up with those fundamentals. But I was just a kid just throwing punches because that's what I loved doing. But I had a lot to learn along the way. So, little things like that along the way when you meet certain people. Like, and Danny Gill could hit you with an uppercut from anywhere. He could be across the ring and he'd just hit you with an uppercut.
Wow.
Where'd that come from? And so, you learn little things from guys like that. But I didn't really notice, like I know we probably didn't get the runs on the board as opposed to a lot of the internationals, but I never really, in the training camps, I never really saw us behind the 8 ball that much, to be honest. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. And Commonwealth Games, world titles, you would have seen amazing, like the world's best. Was there anyone at the time, like, because you would have been around Yuriuki's Gamboa and all of those types of fighters.
Yeah.
You saw them live, just doing your thing?
I never saw a lot of Gamboa. I saw a little bit of him in 05 maybe, but more on TV. I didn't see a lot of Gamboa. No.
Yep.
But they did have a strong side, the Cubans. But then I think it was sort of starting to spread out a little bit more because they were very strong for so long, weren't they?
So dominant.
And that was probably one of my fondest moments was with Fletcher and I. We drew the short straw at a tournament there in Czech Republic and fought the Cubans on our first fight, and let's just looking at each other. And short story, long story short, short story long. We'd been on the piss a week before, and so it's kind of a little bit of karma coming back and slap you in the face. But it was pretty funny, and we both got up on that day because I remember watching Fletcher, and I was after him. I remember watching him, fuck, he's going to get up here. And the points were, it was very close, but he was giving a very tight guard. It was a good fight, and he got the decision. I was like, fuck, I've got to get up and do this.
I can't let him win and not me.
I was just shitting myself, right? Because of what we build up these guys to be.
Yeah.
And they're no different to any of us, right? And but he was a perfect style for me.
Yep.
He was a nice, clean boxer. And I ended up, boxing really well with him. And he complimented my style. Thank you.
Nice.
How many Australian titles did you win all up in the amateurs?
3 as a senior.
And how many all the way through?
13, 16. I'll put about 4.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy. And then when 2008 Beijing Olympics, when you were there, what did you feel? Like you once watched it on TV and then you were there.
Yeah. When you're in that moment, it's always different to what you perceive it to be. But I'd suffered a pretty serious eye injury in the training camp going into the Olympics where I broke my orbital warp.
Wow.
I ended up doing competition sparring with the Dominican Republic. We actually fought each other, and he beat me, the strong little bastard, give it to me in a fight. He's a warrior. He ended up winning the Olympic gold that year in 08. And so it was the last spar before we sort of tapered it off, and I copped a thumb in the eye, and I was crook for a while. I was vomiting after it, and I ended up sitting on the sidelines for about a week.
Wow.
I couldn't train, and we had to go to the medical staff. We're in Thailand for a training camp, and they've just looked behind my eye and said, "Yeah, no, you're right. It's just a couple of dots behind your eye, like just a couple of blood dots." So, but I just didn't feel right. And then we got into the Olympic village, and the Australian doctors looked after us straight away, and they went and did the proper scans and MRIs and that behind the eye, and it had collapsed. And so we were pretty lucky. The support the Australians give is pretty good. I was a bit mixed up in the head because one doctor was saying, "Oh, we're probably not going to let you fight," and then another doctor saying, "We're going to let you fight." So I had a lot of mixed emotions.
Yep.
Probably not the settled experience that you expect, right? But that's life. It's sort of life is a mystery, and you just got to run with it. And nothing's ever going to be perfect. So eventually, I got to fight, and I fought a Moroccan, and he got me in the first round with a really good shot, and I did a little chicken dance, and then after that, I don't think I fought a bad fight. I just didn't do enough to win the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty hard on the scores
at the Olympic Games.
23, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and needless to say, it was pretty. I mean, if you look back at it now, you can laugh because Fletcher and I were rooming together, and we said, "Look, no one's going out until the other one's out of competition. No, we're here to win." And we both lost our first fight.
She was on.
So
the world's best.
That's all part of the experience.
Wow. You blokes were lunatics, mate, back then.
We let our hair down.
I remember seeing you fellas out in the valley one night. You were lunatics. Absolute lunatics.
Yeah, wow. Crazy. Did you see anyone at the Olympic Games, like any notable names that you were like, wow, there's so-and-so? Like, did you see anybody?
There's always quality fights. I mean, you're at the echelon of amateur boxing, so there's always good quality fights going on. And like true Olympic form, there was always some pretty dodgy decisions that sort of make you question,
especially back then.
Just question the sport. I don't think there was Olympics go by really that since the 80s that it didn't happen, right?
It's horrible.
But it's part of sport. You know, boxing is life.
Who were some of the big names in that tournament that went on to have big pro careers?
Lemonchenko was there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
2008, yeah. 04, 08, he won, didn't he? No, 08, 2012. Yeah.
Nice.
Lemonchenko was probably the biggest name.
Yeah.
I don't think...
Was he still the freak then?
Everyone
was like, oh, he's on.
I mean, and Flemo fought his skin out
that's right.
at those Olympics.
That's Fleming, yeah.
And he fought the Frenchman, and he was winning the fight. And he just lost in the last round, I think, to the Frenchman who won the silver medal.
Yeah, wow.
And it's just the way it goes. Hey, and so the Frenchman fought Lemonchenko in the final.
Because I remember Brad Hall fought Gamboa. Was that the Olympics?
No.
Somewhere else?
No, he didn't go to 08. But he might have in a previous tournament. Right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And the scoring system is so different now.
Yep.
It was points back then, and now it's just different style of judging.
Yeah, it's more kind of professional scoring.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But back then, point for punch, yeah.
Yeah, point for punch.
Different, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
And then the, 2007 Com Games?
06 in Melbourne.
In Melbourne.
Yeah.
Was it a different feeling being in Australia?
Yeah, it was, and it was a good experience. We had a great team, man, and that's the one team that still gets together. And we had a little reunion not long ago. That was nice. We talked about getting loose, so that was fun. But it was just good it was funny because you walk in a room, you haven't seen each other for over 10 years, and it's like you've never left, and then it was on.
Couple of lemonades.
And then you don't see each other again. So, but that team was probably one of the fondest teams. So we shared a lot of good times together, and we travelled a lot for that one. That was a really long camp for that 06 one we went.
This is with Bodo?
Yes, correct,
right.
and Mick Daly. And we, because they had the trials in 05. They had them well before the Commonwealth Games. Right. Way too early, but it is what it is. And I think it was like 6 months.
Yeah, wow.
The team was decided before. So, it was, but it was, mate, that was a very enjoyable experience to Commonwealth Games. I did, yeah. And I boxed well there. And I got beat in the quarterfinals by the... James Russin was his name. He went on to win the gold medal.
Nice.
And he was a good, strong southpaw.
Yeah. What was your division?
64 in the
64, yeah.
light time.
I remember it would have been my age. I watched one of your amateur fights. It was at Caboolture. You fought Jeff Horn.
Oh yes,
That was the only
be.
fight. Because look, when I was at Caboolture, you were all over the walls. I was like, wow, Todd Kidd.
Yeah.
And then I finally seen you at our home tournament.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is the guy I've seen all over the walls. And then just look, Jeff Horn was just coming through as an amateur.
Yeah.
But you just, I was like, wow, this is what Australian top level boxing is. And I was just like in awe. It's crazy.
Yeah, no.
I've only seen one fight, and because you were everywhere else, that's when I really got to see you. And look, there's not really too many amateur fights I remember of watching other people, but that's a memory that's always stuck with me.
Okay.
You and Jeff Horn.
Yep.
And just beautiful boxing.
Bit of a tear up.
Yeah.
No, Jeff
don't want to say it, but
Jeff had the. Back then, he didn't, like you say, he was just starting off, but you could feel the tenacity, the willingness. Like he wanted to be there, and he didn't have the finesse, but he just had what you can't teach, and that was I saw that in spades back then. Yeah.
Who won?
Oh, Todd, obviously.
I don't know. It's Jeff Horn.
No,
Todd knock him out?
It was just it was a beautiful display of boxing.
Yeah.
And I got to see it. Just defense was on, and I saw your style. I was like, wow, this is the guy I've seen all over the wars.
Surely there was 8 counts.
It was no 8 counts.
Nah,
I broke my
not that
thumb.
one.
I broke my scaphoid in the first round.
Oh,
right. So that wasn't nice, was it? That's how hard his head is, mate. But that was memorable, and it was good to see him go on and achieve what he did, and very, very strong-willed person.
Yep. And so, how many countries did you travel to, compete at?
Mate, I wouldn't know how many.
But
Like we did a fair bit of Europe because but it was Germany, so we'd base ourselves out of Germany, and then you'd go Czech Republic, France, Spain. We did a lot of Europe, and then we did do America because the World Championships were in Chicago in 2007. And actually, that was the first time. I mean, you guys would have seen Katie Taylor's fight.
Yeah.
It wasn't that a good fight.
Yeah, it was a good fight.
Fucking hell, what a fight. And anyway, I was telling some guys about her. The first time I saw her fight was in 2007 at the World Championships in Chicago. And I remember sitting there. I maybe had too many shandies the night before. And I was sitting there watching these girls fight. And that was the first time like they were doing a trial for the women, and watching how good they were, and they're going, fucking hell, I'd hate to be in that ring right now. Jesus Christ, she can fight.
Wow.
But yeah, so there was plenty of travel involved, and like that was sort of, I guess, if you talk about abundance, I've had plenty of experiences that have taught me, about life, and to be blessed about where, first of all, where we live and the opportunities we get, because some of them, I mean, you've lived in Thailand, some people just don't get those opportunities. So it doesn't matter how bad your life's going.
Yeah, that's true.
You're doing
What was your
well.
first trip? Like your first time you're going and leaving Australia? Where'd you go? Your first amateur trip?
I think New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, it would have been something like that.
You would have been excited because we've got kids going to the Philippines soon, and it's the first time they're leaving the country, and they're like, wow.
Yeah.
So, did you come back a different person? Were you just like, I want more of this?
I don't think so. I sort of just took everything in its stride as it was at the time. But yeah, I mean, you're always around good people, and they help you grow and develop as a person as well, not only as a fighter, but it's really important for the development of someone into their life as well. So those experiences do shape that for you, definitely.
Yeah, wow, crazy. Amazing. And what do you feel are some of your highlights that you pulled out of the sport of boxing? Because that would have created who you are, your character, you embody someone that's really just achieved greatness at an amateur boxing level, like more than myself and other fighters. What do you feel that you've really taken away from your amateur or boxing experience?
I've learnt more from the hardships and the lessons learnt through the losses than I have through the wins, to be honest with you. Like, and it sort of grounds you in life, and boxing's a great teacher that never get ahead of yourself. And I remember coming back after the 2007 World Championships, and I wouldn't take I had a broken nose at the World Championships, but I wouldn't take the leave to go into the next year, and that was actually for the Nationals in 2007 to make the 2008 Olympics, and I was a little bit too big for myself at the time, and so I was like, no, I'll be right, I'll punch through it, and I wasn't treating my body the way you should as an athlete, and so it caught up with me, and it was Biddle. Biddle got me by a point at the Nationals, and so that sort of shattered my dream, and I didn't know that they were going to throw me a wild card to come back in and have another crack at it. And I just, at that moment, it was a good little lesson for me to learn that, it doesn't matter where you go or what you do in your life, you know better than anyone. And we used to have a saying in the Commonwealth team, never above you, never below you, but always by your side. And, that means, at the rawest level, there's always a fighter that can beat you. It doesn't matter where they're coming from or what you think of them, and you can do exactly the same to anyone. Wow. So as long as you keep the right mindset, right, and that's where it all starts. And as you know, boxing is mindset. You can only physically get so fit or so strong, or so it's not the physical attributes that stand out. It's really the mental side. And if you slip up mentally, then that's where the big difference is, right? Yeah. And so those lessons, and as I said to you, as a pro, I missed two cracks in Australian title, and I'm not disappointed by them. They moulded me as a person because, they were great fighters. They were both Africans. They were good. They both represented their countries at the highest level, Commonwealth Games and Olympics, and they were good boys to share. I shared the ring with those guys, and when you share the ring with someone in those circumstances, you share a part of your soul. Yeah. You put it out there, and that taught me a lot more, because it was harder to get through, mate, because you're so attached to the moment. You're so attached to what you think you can be. And then, so for those lessons to come along and for you to be able to sit back and go, at least you had a crack at it, and at least you did what you could with what you had at the time. And it sort of taught me a lot more about how to not be so I guess, how do you put it, involved in who you think you are. Yeah. And that's one of my favourite sayings, who I think I am, because we can get a bit ahead of ourselves, and that was boxing's great way of teaching me just to keep your feet on the ground.
Nice.
And so, it can go either way in life. So those lessons taught me a lot more than the accolades. The accolades, they're great, that's what you work hard for, but no one likes to talk about the tough times, and that's what I've allowed to mould me a little bit more than it's easy to talk about the good times, but not so much about the ones where you slipped up, and we all slip up. We might not be in the boxing room, it could be anywhere. Yeah, for sure. But that's part of it.
Do you carry a lot of injuries from your amateur career into your pros?
I had like a niggling hip injury that it started when I was about 25. And I had my first surgery at 25, and then I got a few years out of it without pain, and then by the time I was about 29 or so, 28, 29, started getting back some serious pain again, and then by the time I was 30, they said you need to get a hip replacement, and of course I'm hard-headed, set in my ways, and I don't listen to people, so I had to go about my own journey to find more about myself, and I kept trying to fight through that phase, which that's the ego in itself, right? You think you're bigger than anything else, but really it's just part of the journey. And so everyone's got an injury.
What was the hip injury from? I heard you guys back down in those Bodo days would just get off the plane and straight into 1200s.
Yep.
Just run.
Yeah, I guess that could be part of it, mate. But everyone's we've all got something different. Right, like I, have mates who like Fletchy'd had 3 or 4 shoulder surgeries. Life is a mystery. Like we can look at it and go, yeah, he was just pushed too hard. But then you got to look at, do you look at the nutrition sides of it? Okay, we could have been better as kids, and I still don't like seeing kids in sweat gear because you're pulling fluid, and so cartilage is 90% fluid. The body is 70% fluid, and so. You can only do that so much without without not causing damage. And so that's sort of what you lived your life by. And it was just normal. You didn't know anything different.
What did you walk around at in the amateurs? What kind of weight did you have to cut?
I was never a big cutter, Benny. I when I was undisciplined, probably have to cut like 5 kilos or something, 4 or 5 kilos a couple of days before.
Yeah.
When I was undisciplined, but if I was on, and nutrition and everything was good, then only 1 kilo, 2 kilos.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, nothing serious.
And how would you guys do that? How would you do that specifically?
All the wrong ways, like you
garbage bags and go
you would dry out rather than and you would sit there and sometimes you would dry out for 2-3 days, which you should have only dried out late, the last little bit, and so you don't know that. No one's really telling you how to do it. You just sort of
it was a different time. Wasn't it? It was very,
you're making your own mistakes, and you just
I don't know if it was a different time in world boxing, but over here it was some Vaseline on your guts and put a bag on.
Yeah, put a garbage bag over your skin like that. How silly is that?
Yeah.
But, so you can walk down many paths and think about those sort of things with the hip, but it is what it is, So it's like I've spoke to you about it. It's led me down a different path. The meaning in the second half of life for me, where we are all energy, and there are, as I mentioned about, mum passing. There's broken energy in the field of the body, which is the left side being the feminine side. And if you look at my body, I've got all the cuts on the left side, so I couldn't defend that side. I've got a left shoulder problem. I've got left hip replacement. I broke my left scaphoid. All my injuries on the left side, and my whole left side body's tighter. So it's understanding.
And you're right-handed.
And I'm right-handed.
Wow.
And so, it's understanding yourself. You can go down many paths and think everyone's different. And so we're all just got to accept what it is and progress through that.
And you would have felt after all these years of boxing that life would have begun again after boxing. Another rebirth of just having let's do something else.
Yeah.
This create what I've achieved and what I've done has to now somehow carry on in the next life.
You think a lot more about me than you give me a lot of credit there, mate. But I was sort of an in the moment kind of guy, not really pushing too far ahead down the track. And so I guess after it, the hip really did plague things, and so I ended up getting the hip replacement done at 33. Wow. And that sort of, I remember, and this is a great lesson that I could pass on to anyone. I remember for 3 years I was in such severe pain I couldn't walk properly. I just struggled. I really struggled every day. But it got me up and it made me better because I wanted to learn more about everything, about how to look after the body, about individuality and how we're all so different. And there's no cookie cutter approach. And so for me, it was just more about, like, I remember after the hip replacement, I thought all I had to do was be out of pain. My only goal was to get out of pain. That was it. The moment I was out of pain, and even the wife said, your face just changed.
Wow.
Everything changed immediately, even when I was in the hospital bed. But after about a couple of months, I had nothing else. And so I fell into a hole. And so, as much as the pain was a bad thing, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it kept me going. It kept me on here, and it kept me working and progressing and trying to be my best self every day. And then when that was removed, and the only thing I wanted is now I've got it and I'm out of pain. And that drove me into a hole. So I just started looking at life through different lenses then, and started just evolving at my own pace and doing things a little bit differently and seeing things differently.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're a wise old soul, Todd.
I love it.
You're a wise old soul.
And look, I definitely want to get you back on, and we can talk about other things down the track. But what have you been up to these days? What gets you out of bed?
Exactly. Usually an alarm clock. But I work with I was, and I enjoy. I still follow the boxing, and I do like to. I don't get to watch the amateurs and that much. I was doing it a little bit, working with the fighters, but it was never something I set out to do. But there's something there I love. It's rewarding working with kids, right? And so there's something there that I do enjoy doing, and that's helping kids. And I work with kids from troubled backgrounds. So, they might not have parents who are, and that comes back to, knowing that how important it is to have good models in kids' lives. And And not to teach them how to fight, but just to put, good values into them. And I don't know another sport, that can really put the values into kids. That
100% agree.
That they can really walk away with more confident within themselves.
Nice. Yeah, it'd be martial arts in general, wouldn't it?
It's
just a different one-on-one kind of sport.
Yeah, 100%. And you got to know you're going to get a smack in the mouth when you get smart, or when you get ahead of yourself, and that's just part of life. It's a good leveler. So, at the moment, most of what I do is with sort of corporate guys, all walks of life, really. From white collars to blokes who are coming in, tradies, and so I run little fighters. I call them the fighters' experience to give. I don't base it on how to fight, but I base it on giving these guys an understanding of what fighters go through before they get on the scales. And I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to go, okay, you've got to, each week you've got to weigh in and you've got to be cutting, a set amount, half a kilo each week. And then the last week I want you to try and cut 5%. Because that's a general rule of a fighter, right? 5%. And so I want you to know what it feels like. I don't want you to do it all the time, but I want you to know what it feels like, so that next time you say, "Oh, that person barely got hit," or "that person," you don't know. You didn't walk their shoes, and you don't know what that person probably got out of a hospital bed just to get in that ring half the time. But we know it from the inside, but you don't from the outside. So I've sort of built a little program around teaching guys about that, guys from all walks of life, because people can take a lot of value out of that. And not only that, it's self-control, really. Understanding you have control of everything. And, you might be hungry, but that'll pass. You might be thirsty, but that'll all pass. You have control of all those thoughts, and that's something that boxing can really teach you and give you that mental fortitude that you need in life, not just in the ring. I like that. Yeah.
And look, we'll end with the last message. So a lot of our All-Star kids watch the podcast, and even kids from other gyms. Look, you've attended the Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, world titles around the world, training camps, everything. So for a kid that's kind of coming through, and they whether they've gone overseas or haven't, have you got any advice for somebody that just wants to have that extra edge? Like, can you share some of your wisdom for any kid that's watching?
Yeah, look, well, it's just about just be yourself. Firstly, because as a kid you can get caught up. What I don't like seeing these days is too many kids dancing around with their hands down. And it's a real popular thing. It is what it is. You can't hate it. But you be yourself. Don't try and copy anyone else's style. You develop yourself around what your coaches taught you. The fundamentals are the most important part of boxing, the most important part of life. And so if you get the fundamentals right, I know we get to see a lot of guys at the top level with their hands down. And you watch Mayweather, you watch him when he got chinned by Mosley. First thing he did, hands went up. That's because it's called a motor engram, and those patterns are trained in your spinal cord. You don't think when you hit that hard, you just do. And that's what boxing's meditation, that's what I tell everybody, because you don't think in those pressure situations, you're just acting. You're in a moment. And so if you watch these guys at the top level, yes, they've got the ability, they get away with these things, but they were taught the fundamentals first. So be true to the fundamentals, and the rest will grow and flow off of that. And you can experiment with whatever you want, and it might be a bit rich coming from me because I fought with my hands down a lot as an amateur, but I got away with it. But the fundamentals were always imbued in me young. And so if you want to go anywhere with it, get the small things right.
Nice.
And that's, work on a good jab, good defense, and good balance, and that's it. The rest will flow off that.
That's no different to what we coach, you and Liam Wilson, right down to the 5-year-old. It is balance, good hand position, and
that's all that matters, right? Yeah,
I'm still learning.
But everything flows off that. Your own character will come off that. You'll prefer certain things, and
some kids will have the ability to be able to get away with certain things, and that's awesome, because that's what makes boxing so. That's what I love about boxing, is there's no perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
You go all the way around the world, and you got, the Cubans are the beautiful boxers, but the South Americans probably got the heaviest hands in boxing. Some of those South Americans. You go over to the Europeans, and they're very technical, and it's just different everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's no perfect way. It's just whatever's right for you, really.
That's why we love it.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
So we're addicted to
100%,
it.
yeah.
Man, Todd, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for
I really
having me,
appreciate it, and
Yeah.
we'll get you on again later on down the track.
Anytime,
And
yeah.
thank you, and I'm impressed. Like from me seeing Todd Kidd all over the Caboolture walls to now be able to share a podcast with you.
Beautiful.
It's cool. It's
Now when
funny
you,
how things.
you get a photo with him and you'll be on his wall at home.
Yeah, let's go.
The wall of shame.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
mate. Appreciate
Awesome,
it.
man.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right,
This is
legend.
cool.
All